Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Under the Knife with Dr. Arun. I'm your host, Dr. Arun Deer. And in these conversations that I have with amazing people, we are trying to dissect modern day challenges that keep us from living the best version of our lives and being the best version of ourselves. I have a very special person today, and her name is Emily Gower. Emily and I met for the first time when I was attending Dr. DeMartini's program, which is called Breakthrough Experience. Some of you may have heard of it. Myself and Emily connected at that stage, and I got to know more about Emily's work as an inspirational speaker, but more importantly, what I was looking was a coach, somebody who could help me in expressing the voice and the message that I had within me by way of books. And Emily is an amazing, not only she's a 12-time author, but she's also the founder of the Extraordinary Life magazine. She's a speaker, also a winner of the Anthill 30 Under 30 Young Entrepreneurs Award in 2012 and 2014. She's got almost 80 published books for her clients, and she's been working with authors for over 12 years now. She's a pretty young person, so don't think that all those achievements that she has got, she's done it in an amazing span of time, and I think her journey is inspirational. This conversation is going to be fantastic. Emily, thank you so much for being on this show with me. I truly appreciate you spending these few moments with me.
Thank you. And thank you for the lovely introduction as well. I say, don't let my age deceive you. I'm very busy. Get
We
a
are
lot
not
done in
guessing
a
your
short
age today.
time. I'm no guessing.
No. Awesome, awesome. So, Emily, I'm wanting to dive straight into the concept of the books, and the most recent book, actually, I should say. And the two that come to mind pretty much straight away is one was Born Great and the Reflections on Purpose. So let's pick up one of them first, which is Born Great, because that's what I sort of, was very intrigued when I first came across to know your work. So tell me what inspired you to become an author?
That's my favorite question.
And
So
that too 12 times.
yeah, I'm kind of addicted to it actually. So I love writing so much, and I think the books for me are an expression of whatever it is that I want to write next that I feel the most inspired by. And they're all so different. And I have 12 books, and they're kind of like, some people say it's like having kids. They're just completely different personalities. But I love to write, and I've always had an affinity for writing ever since I was a little girl. And I would, I started out writing fiction stories about like puppy dogs and kittens that would go on holidays, but then when I was a teenager, I started using writing as a way to soothe myself through those years, where you're really hormonal, and I was having a lot of challenges at school and socially. And so I started to use my writing for something a little bit more serious. And I started writing poetry. It was a little bit dark, I have to admit, but I was using it as a way to kind of connect with my feelings and let out what was inside of me. And then that was probably around age 14. And then when I was about 17 years old, and I'd already moved out of home, and I fell in love with the world of self-development. And I mean,
Wow.
I just loved it so much. It was like coming home, when you find your purpose and you find the
Mm,
thing that you love to do, it is like you returned home. And I've got goosebumps even as I say that, because that's what it is. That's what that feeling of coming home is, what purpose is, because you come home to who you really are. And so I felt like the two worlds connected for me. It was writing and personal development, and that really became the foundation for actually everything that I've done in my career so far. And so I did go through depression, and I call it like near suicidal depression when I was 19. I'd come out of high school, and despite getting very good grades, I went to university and I just didn't know what I was doing there. I mean, I was doing a Bachelor of Arts, and I remember I sometimes say that when you do a Bachelor of Arts, it's kind of the degree you do if you're not quite sure what you want to do, because
yeah.
it becomes a bit of a way to open a door into something else. And for me, I just couldn't see myself there. I didn't know why I was there. So at a very, 18 years old, I left, and much to the dismay of a few family members at the time, because they couldn't see what I could feel inside me, which was that that was not my path. And I knew it somehow innately at such a young age. And but in the next couple of years, after going through like depression and not knowing what to do, I attended the work of actually John Demartini for the first time. And I'd already done a lot of self-development by that point, but John's work was like the icing on the cake. It was the tipping point for me that
Mm.
helped me to love and appreciate myself really for the first time for who I was. And then I wanted to build a life for myself that was really inspiring. And so I needed to find those fundamental key ingredients or building blocks that I believe everybody has that for themselves. Like if you can imagine the top three things that need to be in your life on a regular basis for you to feel fulfilled and inspired. And
Mm.
so I started out, after going through depression, I made this decision, well, I'm going to live an extraordinary life because I need to at least find out if that's possible before I give up. And that was a decision that changed everything, because after that, I then worked out for myself what those fundamental ingredients were. And, three of those things for me were writing, definitely, and self-development, absolutely. And I'd say traveling was another big part of that at the time. And so I made it was quite simple in a way. It was like not rocket science, but that was sometimes I think we overthink these things when it comes to life
Yeah.
and creating the life we want. We make it too complicated. And so the rest was really history for me. After I figured that out, I was then able to start a business as a professional writer. Within a couple of
Mm.
years, I got the opportunity to edit a bestseller for Demartini. So I worked on Inspire Destiny with John. And then my career took off from that point. And, I
Yeah.
say the rest
Yeah.
is history. So.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing is that there was a point in the timeline that you've described from, when you were having depression and you were trying to pull yourself out of it, that there was this moment that things shifted for you and you started because you reflect so much clarity. You radiate
Mhm.
clarity that these are your top values, like you just said about writing and about traveling, which to me is adventure, basically. Traveling is adventure. Traveling is
Mhm.
having fun. Writing is a source of your expression. This is how you express yourself. So, which are very relevant things for overall well-being of an individual. And
Yes.
why I'm bringing this up is being a medical practitioner, that doctor hat that I wear sometimes, it tends to kind of remind me that, okay, ask Emily the question, how is this tied up to finding, how can people find their purpose? Like, it seems that you have found it because you've got so much clarity on where your
Mm.
life is going. And if I can, I know I'm jumping to your second book, which is the most recent book, Reflections on Purpose, but tell me, Em, what do you think about where can an individual start to find their purpose? Because people are generally confused these days.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I think it's fundamentally, if you say to me, okay, what is the key to creating an extraordinary life? You've got to figure out what your purpose is, but that can seem like it's such a
Yeah,
daunting task. We
yeah,
go, oh my God, it's this really big thing. Because the truth is that it is a big thing. Your
yeah.
purpose is a really important part of you having an amazing life and also an amazing career if you can build your business or your career around it as well. But I think you just take like chunk it down a little bit and make it a little bit simpler. Is that fundamentally your purpose is the thing that you love the most. So when you start to ask yourself that question, okay, well, what are the three things I need to have in my life every day for me to feel fulfilled? That will tell you what your purpose, like what direction your purpose is going in. So if you say, I need to do wakeboarding every day, I cannot live without wakeboarding, and this is, adventure sport and wakeboarding is, it's my thing.
Mm.
Okay, great. Then I would recommend building a career around that. This is obviously the thing you love to do. It lights you up. Great. Then that would tell me that this is probably where someone's purpose is. But so I think doing that as an exercise it's a great exercise. You can also almost imagine three overlapping circles and your purpose is in the middle. And then you
Yeah.
start to identify the three things that you love most that light you up. Let's put them together. And then that will show you what your purpose is and what the essence is. Because for me, writing on its own, I mean, I love to write, but it was only when I found self-development that I really found my purpose. So it was
Mm.
when I started to mix these ingredients together that I really found that. And then the travel component is because when I travel, I get inspired to write. So they're very closely linked. So if you could find
Yeah.
your own version of that, and by asking yourself that very simple question and even just meditate on it or write about it in a journal, what are the three things that must be in my life every day for me to feel fulfilled? And
Yeah.
ideally, you'd bring them into your career. You'd be able to have your whole life be an expression of those in some way. That would help. That will help. That's one way of simplifying purpose. But another question I think is particularly useful, and it just popped into my head recently actually, is sometimes you can ask yourself, what is my purpose not? And because we
Yeah.
try to live up to all these ideas of who we think we should be or what we could do. And if you're smart, there's lots of things you could do, or someone else has an opinion about, how they think you should live your life. That may be someone who's in your family, or it could be your partner, I don't know. But sometimes we get these ideas, or we think we have to fulfill a particular role. And I think it can help to list out for yourself, like you just go crazy, take a blank piece of paper and write down everything that is not your purpose in life. So, for example, if I write down what is not my purpose in life, I can tell you with certainty, I am not here to be an athlete. I am not a mathematician. I'm not a scientist. I cannot even tweeze an eyebrow off my partner. I am not a doctor. I could never do what you do.
Yeah.
I could never do it. And so what happens in that is that first and foremost, it relieves the pressure.
Yeah.
But it also at the same time helps me to hone in on who I am. So
Yeah.
that's another powerful exercise that you can use if you're really stuck and you have no idea where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people think, you know what, they're going to just wake up one morning and find their purpose. It'll be just revealed to them. But I think it can happen to some people,
Yeah.
not to everybody, to the majority. I think what you've said is to actually go on that. And the way Tony Robbins describes it, I say, you got to have that hunger. And I can
Yes.
sense that you had the hunger to
Mhm.
kind of, okay, personal development. What else can I do? Like to attend John DeMartini's event at the age of what? 15,
19.
16,
Yeah.
18 was awesome. Like that wasn't
Mhm.
even on my radar, by the way,
No.
when I was like 19.
Yeah. But I think I was so depressed because it wasn't so much in hindsight that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because by that point I already knew I loved to write, and I already knew I loved self-development, and I'd been practicing spirituality since I was 17. So I had an idea of it. It was more that I was struggling with self-worth. And that's a really important piece, is
And
that people know, but you have to have enough love for yourself to want to make that the cornerstone of your life. Like that is a whole other conversation. And that's
and
what I was struggling with.
well, I can tell you, this is not another this is in this
This is
conversation.
it, yeah.
Exactly.
This
This
conversation.
conversation. I
Absolutely.
had exactly the same thing written on my list of questions for you,
Yep.
self-limiting beliefs. Now, you know that
Yes.
I deal with a lot of bariatric patients, obese
Mhm.
patients who have been overweight for decades. And I tell them that becoming overweight is not something that happened overnight. You've
No.
made choices over decades of your life, which has led to this state today. And sometimes it is so bad that it needs surgery. We have
Mhm.
to, and that's part of what I do in my surgical space. But one thing that I often see is that lack of self-worth because of
Yeah.
self-limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, what do you say to sharing from your own wisdom and your own learnings from your own journey? How can an individual, and this is more women than men, I'm not saying men, I'm not trying to protect men, please don't get me wrong. I'm
Yes.
just trying to say that, women are more intuitive. This is
Mhm.
what my observation is. And, they are more sensitive to these energy shifts in their belief systems and all that.
Mhm.
I think men are too, but they need a lot more evidence and pushing around, I think.
A little bit
Sorry,
of beating up,
I know, I think
Yeah.
so. So,
Yeah.
what do you say about it, Em? Over to you. Limiting beliefs. How do we start exploring them? That this is
Yeah.
actually my limiting belief, which is holding me back. And how do I
Yeah.
start working towards it?
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting because we're talking about writing down everything that your purpose is not. That actually to me is a part of this, because when you let go of ideas of who you think you should be and you start to discover who you are, the self-love comes naturally. And then it's like I want to bold and highlight that and put quotations around it, because when you're doing the thing that you love, and whether that's painting or taking care of your kids or taking care of animals or working with the elderly, whatever that is, or drawing or
Mm,
writing, whatever that is, when you're doing that, it's impossible to hate yourself and do the thing you love at the same time. Those
mm.
things like don't exist. It's a completely different frequency.
The
And
two
so
opposites don't exist at the same
yeah, they don't. It's like magnetically one repels the other. It completely
time.
obliterates it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying that I've never questioned my writing. Of course I have, but I've not been in this space where, as I'm writing an inspirational book or an inspirational piece, in that moment, my love for myself is at its highest. It's at its strongest because I'm being who I was born to be. And so
Mm,
sometimes, we're struggling with that self-love because we are trying to be someone that someone else thinks that we should be, or we're trying to be something that we're not because we're trying to get someone else to approve of us, or trying to fit in with a social group or whatever that is. I think the biggest thing to understand is that the love is there, that the love that you have for yourself, it never gets extinguished. It's just buried. Usually it's
mm,
buried underneath layers, or it's underneath expectations or things that you think you messed up on or whatever, most of which is some kind of comparison to who you think you were supposed to be, as opposed to coming face to face with the beautiful, magnificent, potent, powerful truth of who you are as an individual and who you really are underneath. And so when you meet that person, it's impossible not to love them. I mean, it's impossible not to. How could you not? So it coming to that point, like some people ask me, like, who do you look up to? Who's your hero? I go, my soul. That's who I'm looking up to, because I've experienced so much love of myself and life through doing what I love, through writing and everything, that I don't want to be anybody else. I'd much prefer to hang out with myself than hang out with a group of people that are not my peeps. They're not my tribe, so to speak.
So
it's there.
what do you say to, I read somewhere that, if you don't love your own company, you will never be comfortable in anybody else's company.
Correct. I agree.
Like I believe in it, okay, but a lot of people might say that's like so arrogant, that's like, what do you think about it, because I feel
Right.
that the answers, and these are great philosophers like Thomas Jefferson and James Allen have said that men who, or people who learn to live or learn to sit in silence, get all the answers and the guidance. Now,
Yes.
sitting silent is so hard for an average person or a common person to do these days, because we are constantly bombarded with so much distraction.
Yeah.
So I think these two questions are tied up, that, one
Yep.
is sitting in silence, and how do we get the concept of that guidance, towards our purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's actually a piece in my new book, in Reflections on Purpose. There's a piece literally about sitting in silence and the potency of doing that. And there's a piece right before it that talks about the fact that you can't find your purpose by talking to the world around you or looking at the world around you. Ultimately, it has to come from within. I mean, you might get ideas, or you might see someone else who's dancing, for example, and then it inspires your purpose, sure. But ultimately, that answer on who you really are and who you're born to be, and what you love to do, ultimately that has to come from the inside. And so it does require, silence is an aspect of that, of withdrawing into that beautiful sanctuary that's inside you. But also there's an element of, breaking free of societal opinions or social kind of construct, if you will. And so right before, like the thing that kind of, if you will, caused my depression or my struggle with self-worth to begin with, was because I didn't really fit in at school. And so I had social rejection. And so because of that, and I mean, this is the moment I really found my purpose. I was 14, and I knew I loved to write. That's how I knew. So I'd had a really hard week at school. I basically came home with like no friends. I'm 14 years old. I'm hormonal as anything. I can imagine the angst. Like I felt tortured. And I'm sitting alone. So here's the key point. I was sitting alone because the universe rejected me from those social groups. It was like, we're going to like eject you out of that situation. Yes. And I remember the moment so clearly. I've got goosebumps all over me even saying it, because it was the moment I really got to touch my purpose for the first time. And I was sitting Friday night alone, about 8:30 at night, sitting in front of my family's computer, because, we actually had them. We had a computer at home in our office. And I was so down and just had so much pain. And I was like, I don't know where I am. This is just crazy. I don't know what to do. And spontaneously, in the moment where I was alone and I was in silence, suddenly I just felt inspired to write. And I opened a Word document on the computer and I started writing. And I wrote my first poem. And I wrote 140 poems in the next year. I mean, I sent some of them to John Marsden, who wrote Tomorrow When the War Began series. And I was super inspired. And then I found it. Like, that's the moment. But what's interesting is that the precursor to that was A, being alone, and B, having no extra stimulation and being with myself. And so it was like, even though it's uncomfortable to sit in the void, because after a life among the noise, that can be terrifying. Even though it's uncomfortable, we have to drop in, because that's how you get not just the answer to what your purpose is, but it's how you get the answer to anything in life. Like, what am I doing in this relationship? Or what does my health need next? Or what do I do with this next phase of my business? Or do I take that job or this one? We need that, that relationship internally for anything else in our life to work, in my humble opinion, including our health.
So in fact, it's been very wisely said that the silence is the language. You ask the prayer in words, and
Yes.
it is responded in silence, you know.
Hmm.
So I mean,
Yeah.
there is that's exactly, you know, what I feel when I was hearing your story, that you were guided in the sense that, all right, pick up the computer and start typing
Yes.
on the keyboard, and the poem came out,
Hmm.
and that showed you where your path was. But in your opinion, now fast forward however many years, because we are not guessing your age over here.
I'm not ashamed of it.
No,
Funny.
no, we want to just keep guessing because you look
Mm.
so young, you know. So we want to ask you, what is your advice to a person who is busy, caught, distracted in a
Yeah.
relationship, kids,
Mhm.
and trying to juggle so many hats? Where do they find silence? You know, what advice do you give to them,
Yeah.
whatever you've learned?
Well, if you're feeling really overwhelmed and life is crazy and you feel like you're buried under a mountain of everything that you need to do and responsibilities, whatever, then you're probably fantasizing about the idea of spending a week in a silent retreat, right? Because that would feel amazing, but that may not be realistic. So I want to say find the silence between the moments. Like you just need to have little moment, like you're standing at the traffic light waiting for the light to go green so you can cross the road, or you're sitting in the car waiting for the traffic light to go green, or you're standing in line at the supermarket, or you're waking up in the morning, and there's usually, I hope, a couple of minutes or moments before between waking and when you get up to let
Mm,
your body wake up properly. That's your moment right there. That's your opportunity. Even like there's plenty of amazing journals out there, like the 5 minute journal, things
mm,
like that, like any little practice. Because I moments like that where I go, this is crazy. Like schedules get really nuts sometimes, but I have to make a discipline out of it, otherwise it doesn't happen. Like there has to be an aspect of that I have a particular wind down routine at the end of every day, where this is my shift from busyness into silence, because I have to rest and recover, otherwise nothing works. Especially being a woman, everything gets more intense,
yeah,
more up and downs, right? And
yeah.
so it's just making a practice out of it. It's a conscious intention. And you'll be surprised. Like if you set the intention, like, what I'd love today is half an hour of beautiful space just for me to be with me, to
Mm,
just sit and feel. And even if that means you're just sitting by the water, or, and you have to give up the idea that you're supposed to be busy all of the time, and
mm.
release any guilt around taking that time. Because if you don't work, nothing works. Like you fundamentally, you're the CEO of your own life. If the CEO is not okay, nothing else works. The business can't perform, metaphorically or literally. So
Yeah.
it's just taking those moments, take them when you get them, as small as they can be. Listen to a song for 3 minutes. Listen to a song that you love. That will give you that same delicious kind of
Yeah.
internal connection that you need.
And I often I do that quite often actually when I'm by myself in the car. I'll just crank up a song that I really love that uplifts me, because nobody's going to judge me, you know. I'm not at
Right.
home, or the kids are not there, and then I'm not judged. I just crank it brings me joy, you know. But
Yeah.
I think one of the things is that, I feel we become old not because we age, but
Mm.
we stop being that child that was actually there. We stop doing playful activities that actually bring us alive. I feel that's one way how the universe communicates with us.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's something that I've noticed often in the patients that I see, people that I come across who come to see me for this. So just moving on with this, you touched upon briefly, M, about the power of intention and affirmations. I think you
Hmm.
touched upon briefly.
Yeah.
Uh, what is your experience about, do you think affirmations really work? And if they do,
Well,
what
I
is
think,
your sort of
yeah.
take on it?
So I wouldn't honestly say that affirmations have been my greatest tool. However, having said that, I love inspirational words. I'm a writer, so
Of
I
course.
love having amazing quotes around me. So even though I may not always use affirmations, I mean, I do have some. Like I have some statements. Like one of my affirmations, you could call it an affirmation, is I'm a financial badass, right? So that's actually one of my affirmations. You could call it a belief. So I have little ones like that, but I
Mm,
have a lot of inspirational quotes. So I'm using the same concept of the affirmation
yeah.
in the form of quotes a lot to lift and inspire my mind. I do that every day, absolutely. But I'm a huge believer in being intentional. I think most people have absolutely no idea how much magic can happen in their life if they just start asking the universe for it. So I have a good friend of mine that often says that I play with the universe, and I love him dearly. He's an engineer, so he's a little more earthbound than me, I think is a good way to put it. So I'm like, always heading towards the stars, and he wants to know how things work, right? Because he's an
More
engineer brain.
grounded, right?
Right. So I'll say something like, I told him a story the other day that I'm putting my new vision board together. I do one every year, putting a vision board together. And I had cut out some pictures, and I was going to, I went up the Sunshine Coast with a girlfriend for, 4 days. And so the next day she says, we're staying at her son's house, and her son and his wife have a chef that comes in every week and cooks for them. So here's this, I'm sitting at the kitchen bench, and here's me on the Tuesday or whatever. I'm cutting out my images for the vision board. And I realized that I've printed out a picture of a chef cooking meals, because I love being cooked for. Like, I love it. He's preparing this healthy food. And as I'm cutting this image out, I was sitting at the kitchen bench talking to the chef, and she's so lovely. I was like, whoa, that manifested really
That's manifested
quickly.
right now.
It was so fast. And I showed it to her because we were talking about vision boards. And so here's me telling my engineer friend, I said, guess what happened today? And he said, you're always playing with the universe, And then he says he pulls on a hard hat because he thought maybe some rocks will fall from the sky or something. But this is the world that I live in, that I was introduced to at a very young age, is that there's a lot of synchronicity and magic. And I know, I got a little older and had more challenges in life, and then you become grounded. And I think the key is to not lose your spark of enthusiasm, to not age and become super heavy and bitter and cynical, but to keep the lightness and to keep that inspiration that's there, and the magic and the beauty. And then I understand from personal experience and now wisdom, I understand that that's not always easy. And, we go through things as human beings, but to return to that state and to consciously be intentional about that and say, you have no idea. Like, if you're not sure about something right now, ask the universe for a sign. I do that frequently. I would say, show me a sign, about this. I just want to check this with you, universe. And it's not all on me. So I was like, I love one of Demartini's affirmations. He says, I'm the vision, God's the power, and together we're the team. Yeah. And I love that affirmation. So I play with that frequently. I know that it's not all on me. I mean, I could come up with all these grand plans for my life, but ultimately I'm also here just to discover what I'm here for. And even though I know that has a lot to do with writing and self-development, I feel like I'm still discovering every day, giving up layers of who I think I'm supposed to be and coming more and more into my truth,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are going to be like this, or we intend to be like this right till the last day on this earthly journey. You're always learning, always evolving, So yeah, that's so true. And actually it is so important to understand that quantum play that happens between,
Yes.
you depends on how much. And I've recently gotten into the work of Neville Goddard, and Neville says feeling is the secret. He says how you're feeling about a situation is what is going to allow it to bring into your life, not just asking. This is not just my wish list. He says, I want to know how you feel about it. And it's the feeling that allows you to manifest anything in your life. So,
there's so much vibration. Like you were saying, oh no, it's all about the thoughts. No, it's about the energy attached to the thought, which is a feeling. Because you can think, well, how is that ever going to work? But if you ask that question with that energy, we go, well, that you've already given up on it. I can tell you that you've already just shut down the possibility. But if you say, I wonder how this is going to work, and it's a totally the same question, totally different energy, it's the feeling behind it that's going to change the outcome. So I agree with that. I see
this, Emily, so often in patients, when they are in the health and well-being space, people who've got cancer. Cancer is a very extreme diagnosis. It brings different emotions into people, And
Yes.
I think it's very easy to give up the will to live. And I've dealt with patients. Who were in anger and bitterness. And after, the initial treatment for their cancer, whether it was surgery and chemotherapy, this cancer came back with a vengeance. And I have also, on the same token, people who had gratitude in their life for just being alive. And even though they had cancer, they have had long-standing remissions after the same disease. So same disease, different outcomes. That's what I talk about, often. So, Em, can I say that our conversations can go on for hours? I think this is the question that I'm getting. But hey, we're getting to the end of this. And I think, I want to ask you three pertinent questions that I ask
Mhm.
every of my guests, because these questions actually bring up the real wisdom that is there in the personality of the individual. So if you allow me, I want to ask you these three questions. These are my sort of, the questions that bring up the wisdom that we can get and the listeners can get from you. So the first question is, what is your most successful habit that has brought you to where you are today, Em?
Great question. Very hard when someone says pick your most successful one, because immediately your cheeky brain picks two. Um, they're, they're very
You can
linked. So
take two if you like.
yeah, I'm going to give you two because they're, to me, they in a relationship with each other.
Yeah.
One of them is self-development work.
Mm.
So whatever that looks like for you, self-development, I believe, I don't know how people go through life without it. I mean, I believe it is so important. And when I say what is self-development, what are we talking about? I'm talking about anything that can help you to sort through your thoughts and feelings and make sense of life. That to me is what self-development is about. And it peels away like the emotional wounding and helps you get back to like who you are and what you're really here for. Basically peels away anything that's like trivial or, human, and it helps you to kind of get back to who you really are. And so for me, I don't know where I'd be without it. I mean, that to me has started out as and continued as for going on 20 years, the most important success strategy of all. You say, yeah, there's marketing and there's all these other things, and they've helped, and I've had amazing mentors, but that would have to be the absolute number one if I had to choose one. That I'd say that it's the personal transformation of yourself that allows the transformation of your life. So that would be the first one. And the second one, which is closely coupled to that, is my journal.
Yeah.
And being a writer, I could not do my life without my journal, but it's also part of my personal development. So I use my journal very frequently to document my
To
thoughts.
express your thoughts, yes.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
they have done scientific studies, they meaning research institutions,
Yes,
but there
yes.
have been scientific studies done on the benefits for mental health and wellness of journaling and how it helps people to process their feelings and thoughts. Basically,
Correct.
if you're bottling your feelings and thoughts, then it's making you sick in one way or another, and it's creating resistance in your life, and it's interfering with what you want and the life you want. So better out than in, and let's process it, let's understand it, because when you process your life properly, you come out with two things: love and wisdom. And that is the seed of an amazing life, and hopefully gratitude as well. We could probably add a third one to that, but it's generally when you properly process it, that's how you feel. So that would be my first success strategy. The most important one is any kind of personal growth, self-development work.
Yeah, and I think spending time in, and you and I have had separate conversations about it, that, that's the one thing that gives you the most return on investment, right?
100%.
Personal development,
Like
So,
10 times over. I mean, I spent at least $30,000 with Demartini when I was like 19 years old. I mean, I borrowed money from a
wow.
friend. That's how much I wanted it. And I knew that I needed it. And I look at the trajectory of my life and career, and I'm not saying it's been free of challenges. It certainly
No,
hasn't.
no.
But I don't know where I'd be without it. I mean, it's like a black and white contrast for me in my
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
That it was that profound and powerful for me. And whenever I need more transformation or the next layer or the next level, that's where I come back to. I come
Yeah,
back to myself, basically. It all starts from there.
awesome. Question number two, M, if all your books and your work and your journal was taken away,
Mhm.
what are your three truths of wisdom that, you would share with anyone else? Just
Yeah.
three truths.
The first one is that every human being has a purpose. So I believe that we're created with something in mind that is unique to us, that is like our blueprint. So that fundamentally, I think it's incredibly important to not only believe that, but to feel it, like to know it deep down
Yes.
inside you. So the first one is every person has a purpose, expressed differently, yes, but we're all necessary as part of the puzzle.
Mm.
So that's the first one. The second one is that the universe has a plan for you, and that everything in your life is attempting to help you to discover who you really are and to help you to be who you really are. And it's a very high level thing to say, but if you look at it day to day,
No.
even through rejections and challenges and losses and deaths and whatever is going on in your life, as you would say, your mess has a message, and it's trying to guide you to something greater. And the thing is, you could say, well, how do you know that? I don't know. But what I do know is that when I go through life believing that, everything works
Mm.
out better. So it's working for me, and I'm going to continue doing it. So that would be the second one, is that the universe has a
Yes.
plan. And the third one is that we're filled with potential. Like at our core, beyond all our doubts and fears and confusions and comparisons and all of that, we're nothing but pure potential. I've got goosebumps all over me. We're nothing but pure
You're
potential. Like
born great.
Yes, we're born great. We really are. I mean, that title was, God, I was writing that book for 7 months before the title popped in. It was very frustrating.
Yeah,
But
that's so
when
true.
it popped in, it was like, we really are. We're filled with that. And I don't think we can even comprehend just how much we're capable of. And
Yeah,
the only way to discover that, by the way, is to find the thing you love doing and
yeah.
live boldly in pursuit of it. You can't discover it. You can barely even imagine it until you go and do it. So that'd be my three truths.
Awesome. That's good. And I can say that with You're Born Great, it was your truth. It had to come out that way.
Correct. Yeah.
Beautiful. Question number three is, what do you see as your legacy? You're doing some amazing work, and at such a young age, you are just crushing it, and I'm so proud that I know you and I'm associated with you in the sense that, we share this common sort of connection of personal development, writing, expression, and of course, John DeMartini. So what is your legacy? Where do you think your work is taking you? What do you see as a future?
Well, what's interesting is that I've done lots of different things. I've run a publishing company for nearly a decade. I've coached a lot of authors. I've, created different programs, different products on different topics.
Yeah.
I run different programs. I publish books. I mean, I've done so many different things. But the thing is, like, where my work is taking me, the essence is still the same, is that I want to share inspirational messages with the world. And that it means through spoken, it's written, it's books, it's articles, it's our magazine that we're producing. Everything for me is ultimately about that. So say, why are you here? It's like, I want to inspire humanity more than anything. That's what I want. It's for someone to say, you know what, I just needed that message today. And so it's doing that. That's the simplest essence of it. Doing that on for as many people as I'm here to do that for, like as many people as possible. So I say, my legacy is I could be cheeky and say probably a lot of books. A lot of books, a lot of books, a lot of words, but also some of that has been other people's words and other people's messages as well. So anything that will help someone to, benefit their life, to raise the quality of their life and to figure out why they're here. I want to be part of that. But ultimately, my legacy is inspirational messages that will help someone to discover their purpose and to go live that on the planet.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I acknowledge and I commend the work that you're doing. That is truly inspirational. And for any young person, I see that age is not a bar to get that wisdom. You got that wisdom, or that spark of, I should say, let's not even use the word enlightenment. You found your purpose at that young age. So tell us, where can people find you? Where can people find your books? Because it'll be, a shame not to kind of get a taste of, what you express in such amazing work that you do.
Thank you. The easiest way to do that is to jump on my website. So www.emilygower.com. So as long as you spell my last name correctly, it's an English
And we'll
translation.
put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an English translation of a Russian last name. So I got like Polish, Middle European blood. But so GOWOR. So if you go onto my website, you'll see all my books. You can order any of them. I've got inspirational wall art that's starting to come out as well. It'll link through to the magazine, so you can become part of our world, my world of inspiration. But also you can find me by looking up my name, because I'm the only Emily Gower with that spelling on the internet. So you just look me up on YouTube.
Just to clarify, it is GOWOR.
Correct. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But yeah, you can find me on social media anyway. Follow, reach out, connect with me. I actually love it when people message me. So if you want to reach out and say hello, please do. Love to discover who you are. So, and thank you.
And by the way, Emily is helping me with my latest book as well. She helped me with my previous book, which was Your Mess Has a Message, and my next book, which is Power Beyond Prescription. So thank you so much, Emily,
You're
for
welcome.
your time, your lovely
Thank you.
words. It was a delight speaking with you as always. And keep doing the great work you're doing. Keep
Thank
inspiring people.
I will. I promise. Thank you.
Thank you.